Are you okay?
Perfect.
You seem a little on edge.
It's time to break down Shadowhunters Season 3, Episode 14 and find out just what happened. What's going on, you lovely people? Lisa here for your weekly dose of Shadowhunters. Now, this week's episode is titled A Kiss from a Rose, kinda like that Seal song, and it finds Magnus bargaining to get his magic back, Jonathan being even creepier with his incestual kind of lust for Clary, and much more. So it's a jam-packed episode. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Last we left Maia and Jordan, they had locked themselves in the fridge at the Jade Wolf to avoid the vampires. Definitely not the best place to lock yourself into for Maia, since she's claustrophobic. But Jordan tries to help her calm down, and he kind of suggests that they remember happy memories. And what do you know, both of their happy memories involve each other. And well, as Jordan keeps fading, Maia finally looks at his wound to see that it's silver poisoning, something he refrained from telling her. And the only ones who can cure him are the Praetor. But since Maia and Simon broke up, she's pretty sure no one's gonna come looking for them, because the vampires planned this attack pretty well, because the Jade Wolf is also closed on Mondays. Now, before Jordan passes out, and actually after, they use the time to kind of make amends and forgive each other for all that's happened in their, relationship. Finally, though, someone does come looking for them, and yes, it is Simon. He actually goes to see Luke because he hasn't heard from Jordan since he went out to look for Heidi, and Luke, he actually gets a call from the Praetor about Jordan going AWOL. So they set out to go look for them, but Simon has to distract the cops that have been tailing Luke first, and the two get away and they go to the Jade Wolf to see the massacre. Now, thanks to Simon's supersonic vampire hearing, he frees Maia and Jordan from the fridge and goes to take them to the Praetor, while Luke stays behind at the Jade Wolf as the cops show up and arrest him. I mean, man, Luke just hasn't had it easy lately, right? But seeing his face when he walked into the Jade Wolf and saw that pack massacred, and then when he closed Russell's eyes, a guy who, at one point was his enemy, it was pretty gut-wrenching to watch, and I'm just like, Luke, dude, what are you doing? I'm wondering how he's gonna kind of get himself out of this situation with the police, or is he just going to be like, take me, lock me up, maybe I'll be happier in prison. I mean, there's probably no evidence at all to, link Luke to any of this, but you never know, right? Yeah, someone wants him to go down, I'm sure. As for Izzy, she doesn't want to listen to what Mara said about, snooping into whatever the clave is doing, but she's determined to figure out just what Century Greenlaw meant when he said his final words. Now, after some arguing with Alec gives her 24 hours to do an autopsy on Greenlaw, because she thinks that when the guy mumbled his last words and one of them was inside, he actually meant it literally. And what do you know? She does her autopsy and she finds what looks like a flash drive literally inside of the guy. Now for Magnus, just as it seemed like he was starting to get the hang of the whole mundane life, this episode he's right back to craving to get his magic back. Desperate times call for desperate measures, so Magnus goes to the one person who can help him, Lorenzo, because, well, Lorenzo banned all the other warlocks from helping Magnus. So Lorenzo agrees to do the magic transfusion for a price. Magnus, he just seems to want that magic no matter the cost, even if it runs the risk of his body refusing the transfusion. Magnus agrees to this whole thing without even hearing what Lorenzo wants, and he gets his magic back. And of course, he is using it for every little things. He wants it to be known that he has his magic back, and he is high off of this whole thing. He ends up showing up to help Alec with the research when it comes to the Morningstar sword, and Alec is definitely looking concerned. He's kind of like, how'd you get it back? Slow your roll down. You're kind of going too gung-ho here. Now, as far as this Morningstar sword goes, they find out that it could be buried with a mundane in Antwerp, so they portal there, but the buried sword is a fake hidden inside an authentic sheath. So they realize it's probably been gone for maybe 20 years at least, and they have to figure out where the real sword is. But they realize that the inscription on the fake sword says that if Jonathan gets this sword, he can summon an army of demons, which will definitely not be a good thing. Now, when Alec and Magnus portal back to Magnus' apartment, Magnus frantically is packing things up, and he finally reveals to Alec that the price of the magic was giving Lorenzo the apartment. And Magnus explains that the magic makes him feel whole and alive, and as long as he has the magic in Alec, he doesn't need anything else like that apartment, materialistic things. Alec, though, is not too happy about all of this and ends up confronting Lorenzo when Lorenzo stops by the apartment, because let's face it, Lorenzo has a mansion, so why would he want Magnus's apartment? Well, he basically says it was just to humiliate Magnus and put him in his place, since Magnus still doesn't seem to accept the fact that Lorenzo is now the High Warlock. But Alec, he knows Lorenzo's kind of shady, and he's ready to take Lorenzo down, and he's gonna be sitting there waiting for the first mistake this guy makes. Gonna strip him of that high ward lock position, and I'm guessing giving it back to Magnus. So watch out, Lorenzo. Alec is watching. But yeah, while it's cool that Magnus has his magic back, you think everything will be fine and dandy, but you know everything has a cost, and Magnus leaves the bar after a night of drinking, and well, he ends up having something in common with Eleven from Stranger Things. His nose starts to bleed after he makes a portal to the Institute. So it looks like everything, like I said, has a cost. Magnus, maybe he's overdoing the magic a little, or his body's starting to reject it. So I'm not sure if Magnus is going to be able to handle not having his magic again. Could send him back into a deep depression, but is every time he uses his magic now going to cause his body to just kind of deteriorate or bleed? We shall have to see. Finally, let's talk about Jace, Clary, and Jonathan. So Jonathan has really been missing Clary. You know, if carving I miss you into her arm wasn't enough, he's also gone and gotten somebody that he glamours to look like Clary, and even given her a script, but it's just not satisfying his craving for Sister Dear. And guess what? He's taken that apartment right to New York to make sure he can keep an eye on Clary. As far as Jace goes, he's decided to take Clary on a really cute date. You know, they go to an ice rink and things are all sweet, and you're kind of like, I'm liking this, okay. But this is not going to last long. You see, Jace goes to switch out his skates, and Jonathan is right there to knock him out, tie him up, and take his look by glamoring himself. So Jonathan, he of course wants to get the heck out of there, and he goes and gets Clary, and they go for a walk, and Clary starts to kind of suspect something is wrong when Jace, aka Jonathan, steals a flower from a flower cart, and she definitely knows something's up with the way he's talking, and then he kisses her. I'm guessing to her it felt like, well, kissing her brother. But it also just made me grossed out that Jonathan is just so into Clary in that way. Totally not appropriate. But yeah, Clary's kind of like, this is not adding up, or maybe it's all adding up, depending on how you want to look at it. So she sends kind of Jonathan or Jace to go get a drink, and she pricks her finger with the rose to make sure her hunch is right, and she sees that so-called Jace also wince in pain and check his finger. So then she sneakily calls Izzy to tell her what's going on, that they have to go find Jace, and she turns off her anti-tracking rune, and they hatch a plan where Clary's going to be able to stun Jonathan with a rune just long enough for him to be captured. So Izzy and a few men go, find Jace, free him, wake him up, and they head to find Clary. But they gotta do it fast because Jace realizes Jonathan's trying to get Clary to the apartment, which must be in town, and they're gonna portal out of there or transport out of there, so they gotta move fast. So then we have Jonathan as Jace dragging Clary away to what he says is an art museum, but Clary, she knows something's up, tries to stall, and now he's kind of like, are you okay? You're talking weird. You seem on edge. And Clary continues to try to stall him when Izzy and Jace run up behind Jonathan. And Clary's able to tackle Jonathan down to the ground as he turns back into himself. And they yell at her to stun him now. This is your opportunity. But Clary freezes. She and Jonathan lock eyes. Something happens there that causes her to hesitate, and he ends up escaping. So when Clary returns to the Institute, she can't fall asleep, and Jace comes in to see her, and she mentions the kiss and how she now feels violated.
We're gonna make this right, Clary. I swear on us.
Why us?
Because there isn't anything I believe in more.
Then Jace goes to actually kiss Clary, but she pulls away, and it's kind of not surprising because that girl is traumatized, especially by the face of Jace having creepy Jonathan inside that face. I don't think I'd want to kiss Jace, even if it was the real Jace, for quite a while. But yeah, then we go back to Jonathan's apartment where his little toy is ready to play Clary again, but Jonathan, he might not need her anymore.
I had a breakthrough with my sister. And I have a feeling that the real Clary will be joining me much sooner than expected.
So, like, what on earth happened when Clary and Jonathan locked eyes? Did he somehow make her see her dark side? Did she realize that they are actually more alike than she thought? Or was he able to do some kind of like mind tricks on her or something? Like, what happened there to make her like start to rethink everything? Either way, this dude is super creepy, and well, that wraps up this week's Shadowhunters episode. So essentially we have Maia and Simon racing Jordan to the Praetor to save his life, Luke getting arrested, Magnus getting a nosebleed from his magic, which might not be a good thing, which isn't a good thing, I'm sure. Izzy finding hidden information in the Sentry's body, and the gang still on the hunt for that Morningstar sword. So let's go ahead and take a look at what drama is ahead for us in the next episode.
Vampires killing werewolves. This is how wars start.
Heidi has to pay.
She will. I'll kill her myself if I have to.
You cannot blame yourself for what happened to the pack.
I need to face the consequences of my actions. I don't see a lot of warlocks in here.
I can see why.
I heard your brother was in New York. You let him go.
Okay, I'll admit I'm not a huge fan of this Heidi storyline, so I'm hoping that wraps up pretty soon. I'm okay with a Heidi Maia showdown, maybe. As far as Luke goes, I get what he's doing, but it also just makes me want to hug him and say, don't do it, man. Don't give up that easily. And look at Clary there, getting to kick some ass. It kind of mirrors her character. Catherine McNamara is also on Arrow right now, where she plays some kind of like fighter, so it's like, I guess this was a good training for that show. But is Clary kind of maybe going over the edge too? Is her dark side coming out? I don't know, but that's all I've got for this week's Shadowhunters recap. So hit me up down in the comments and let me know all your thoughts and theories about what's going to happen the rest of Season 3. What do you think Jonathan did there with Clary when he looked into her eyes? Will they be able to take him down? Who actually has the Morningstar sword? And what do you think is going on with Magnus and his nosebleeds? Let me know, and then after that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and then check out more of my fun videos right over here. You don't want to miss any. My name's Lisa. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you again next time.